She blocked an ambulance entrance because she needed to run inside real quick. And what happened next landed her in handcuffs. I'm Jake, and I work night shifts as an ER nurse at St. Mary's Regional Medical Center. And let me tell you, I've seen a lot of wild stuff during my career. But nothing prepared me for the morning I met Deborah, or as everyone now calls her, Emergency Entrance Karen. It was 6:45 a.m. on a Tuesday. I'd just finished a brutal 12-hour shift dealing with 3 trauma cases, 2 cardiac arrests, and a guy who somehow got his hand stuck in a vending machine. And all I wanted was to get to my car and go home to sleep. But when I walked out those automatic doors, I froze because there it was. A white Lexus SUV with a vanity plate reading Deb for EVR parked directly in the red emergency zone. You know, the area with giant red letters painted on the ground that say no parking, emergency vehicles only, and blocking the entire ambulance entrance. I looked around, thinking maybe someone was having a medical emergency. Maybe they rushed inside with a family member. That would make sense, right? But no, I saw the driver, a woman in her 50s, wearing a hot pink velour tracksuit that looked like it cost more than my monthly rent. Platinum blonde bob, perfectly styled, giant gold hoop earrings catching the morning light. And she was just sitting in the driver's seat, scrolling through her phone like she was parked at a Starbucks drive-thru. I walked up and politely tapped on her window. She rolled it down about 2 in and looked at me like I just asked her to donate a kidney. And I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, you can't park here. This is the emergency entrance for ambulances only." And oh man, that's when the crazy started. She looked me up and down, saw my scrubs, and said with this incredibly condescending voice, "I can see you work here, so you should understand. I'm only going to be a minute. My mother has a doctor's appointment, and I'm dropping her off." And I'm thinking, okay, there's a patient drop-off area literally 50 feet away with a covered walkway and everything. So I pointed that way and said, "That's great. But there's a designated drop-off zone right over there. You really need to move because ambulances need access to this entrance." And this woman, I kid you not, she rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. And she said, "Listen, I don't have time for this. I'm on the HOA board in my neighborhood, and I'm very busy. I know what I'm doing. I'll move when I'm ready. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe to HOA Karen Tales for more wild Karen stories." Now, being an HOA board member apparently meant she could override hospital emergency protocols, which is news to everyone in the medical field. But before I could respond, Marcus, our hospital security guard, came walking over because he'd seen the whole thing on the security cameras. And Marcus is this big guy, 6'3" as can be, and he's dealt with difficult people for 20 years. So he approached the driver's side and said in his professional voice, "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to relocate your vehicle immediately. You're blocking emergency access." And I thought, okay, when security tells you to move, you move. Case closed. But Karen, oh no. Karen decided this was her moment to shine. She actually got out of her car, leaving it running, door wide open, still blocking the entrance, and she starts going off on both of us. Do you know who I am? I have been coming to this hospital for 15 years. I donate to the hospital foundation. My husband is friends with the hospital administrator. You can't tell me where to park. And she's got her finger jabbing toward Marcus's chest, her gold rings flashing, her voice getting louder and louder. And I'm standing there, exhausted, running on zero sleep, watching this woman in a designer tracksuit have a complete meltdown over being asked to move her car 50 feet. Then, and this is where it gets really bad, we hear sirens. An ambulance is approaching, and I can see the flashing lights coming down the main road toward the hospital. And Marcus immediately says, "Ma'am, there's an ambulance coming. You need to move your vehicle now." And any reasonable person would sprint back to their car and move it, right? Not Karen. She crosses her arms over her hot pink velour jacket, plants her feet, and says, "I'm not moving until I speak to your supervisor. This is harassment. You're both being incredibly rude to me, and I'm going to report both of you, and the ambulance is getting closer." The sirens are getting louder, and Marcus is on his radio calling for backup, and I'm genuinely panicking now because someone in that ambulance could be dying. The ambulance pulls up and has to stop about 20 feet back because Karen's Lexus is completely blocking the entrance, and the EMTs jump out looking stressed, and one of them yells, "We have a critical patient. We need access now." And they start unloading a stretcher with a patient on it. This older man who's clearly in bad shape, oxygen mask on EMT, doing chest compressions. And they're trying to wheel him around Karen's car. But the angle is terrible, and they're losing precious seconds. And I run over to help guide the stretcher. And I'm furious now because this woman's entitlement is literally putting someone's life at risk. Karen is still standing there, and you'd think seeing a dying patient would snap her back to reality. But instead, she starts recording the whole thing on her phone. And she's yelling, "I'm documenting this. You're all ganging up on me. This is discrimination. I know my rights." And Marcus is trying to get her to move. And she actually shoves his hand away when he reaches toward her car keys that are still in the ignition. And that's technically assault on a security officer. But Marcus stays professional and calls the police instead. If you're enjoying this, hit that like button and share this video to support HOA Karen Tales. By now, a crowd is gathering. Doctors, nurses, hospital staff coming out on their breaks, patients, families watching from the windows. Everyone filming on their phones because this is absolutely insane. And the EMTs finally managed to maneuver the stretcher past Karen's car and get the patient inside. But those extra 3 or 4 minutes could have made the difference between life and death. And I'm thinking about that patient's family. How they have no idea that some entitled woman in a hot pink tracksuit suit delayed their loved ones. Emergency care because she couldn't be bothered to park in the correct spot. 2 police cars pull up, lights flashing, and Officer Rodriguez steps out. This nonsense officer who takes one look at the situation and immediately understands what's happening. And she walks up to Karen and says, "Ma'am, I need you to move your vehicle immediately. You're blocking emergency access, and you've been asked multiple times to relocate." And Karen, still holding her phone up recording, says, "Finally, someone with actual authority. I want to file a complaint against these 2. They've been harassing me. I'm a taxpayer. I donate to this hospital, and they're treating me like a criminal." And Officer Rodriguez just stares at her for a second and says, "Ma'am, you are breaking the law. You're parked in a clearly marked. You've refused lawful orders to move. You've delayed emergency medical services, and I'm told you made physical contact with security. Is that correct?" And Marcus nods and says, "Yes, officer." She pushed my hand away when I attempted to remove the keys from the ignition to move the vehicle myself. Karen's face goes from smug to shocked in about 2 seconds, and she sputters, "I barely touched him. This is ridiculous. I want to speak to your supervisor." And Officer Rodriguez says, "Ma'am, I'm giving you one final opportunity to move your vehicle and leave the premises, or you will be placed under arrest for obstruction, trespassing, and assault." And you'd think that would be enough, that the threat of arrest would wake her up. But Karen doubles down. He actually says, "You can't arrest me. I haven't done anything wrong. This is America. I have freedom to park where I want, and I'm watching this unfold, thinking there's no way she's actually going to let herself get arrested over a parking spot. But that's exactly what happens. Want to hear the craziest HOA tales every week? Subscribe to HOA Karen Tales and never miss out. Officer Rodriguez pulls out her handcuffs and says, "Ma'am, turn around and place your hands behind your back. You're under arrest." And Karen's mouth drops open. Her designer sunglasses fall off her head onto the pavement, and she starts backing away, saying, "No, no, no, you can't do this. I'm calling my lawyer. I'm calling my husband. This is police brutality." But Officer Rodriguez is having none of it. She calmly walks forward, takes Karen's wrist, the one not holding the phone, and within seconds, Karen is in handcuffs, still protesting, still insisting this is all a huge misunderstanding. And the crowd that's gathered actually starts clapping. Honest to God, applause from exhausted medical staff who've been watching this entitled woman endanger patients. They walk her to the police car, and she's crying now, her perfect makeup running, her hot pink tracksuit looking a lot less glamorous. And she keeps saying, "My mother is still inside. Someone needs to call my mother." And Officer Rodriguez says, "We'll make sure your mother is notified and your vehicle will be towed from the emergency zone." And they put her in the back of the police car. And another officer gets in Karen's Lexus and moves it to the impound area. And just like that, the emergency entrance is clear again. I found out later that Karen's mother came out about 10 minutes after the arrest. Not from an emergency, just a routine follow-up appointment. And she was absolutely mortified when hospital staff told her what happened. She kept apologizing to everyone, saying her daughter has always had issues with authority and thinks being on the HOA board makes her special. And apparently Karen had been telling her mother to wait inside while she dealt with some rude hospital workers. So her mom had no idea her daughter was getting arrested outside. The cherry on top, the patient from the ambulance, the one whose care was delayed by Karen's tantrum. He survived thanks to the quick work of our ER team, but the hospital filed an official complaint with the police department, and Marcus provided security footage showing the entire incident, and I gave a statement about the delay in patient care, and Karen ended up being charged with obstruction of emergency services, trespassing, resisting a lawful order, and simple assault on a security officer. 4 separate charges because she refused to move her car 50 feet. I heard through the hospital grapevine that Karen tried to sue the hospital for emotional distress and wrongful arrest. But her lawyer apparently took one look at the security footage and the dozen witness statements and told She had no case whatsoever. And she ended up pleading guilty to reduced charges, paying a massive fine, doing community service. And she's now banned from St. Mary's Regional Medical Center property for 5 years, which means she has to drive to a hospital 30 miles away for any medical care. The best part, though, the absolute best part, is that someone from the hospital submitted the security footage to the local news station with the headline, "HOA board member blocks emergency entrance, gets arrested," and it went viral in our city. And apparently her HOA board held an emergency meeting and voted her off the board because they didn't want their neighborhood association represented by someone who literally blocked ambulances. And several of her neighbors came forward with their own horror stories about Deborah's power trips during her time as HOA president. All the petty fines she'd issued, all the ridiculous rules she'd tried to enforce. And the whole neighborhood basically celebrated her being removed from power. I still work at St. Mary's, and every time I walk past that emergency entrance, I look at that red painted zone and think about the day Karen thought she was above the law, thought her HOA board position meant something outside her gated community, and learned the hardest way possible that emergency entrances are not suggestions. They're literal life or death access points. And no amount of entitlement, designer tracksuits, or vanity plates will change that. Thanks for watching HOA Karen Tales, where every Karen story has a twist. Like, share, and subscribe for more drama from the neighborhood. The moral of the story: being on an HOA board doesn't make you special. It doesn't give you authority outside your neighborhood. And it definitely doesn't give you the right to endanger lives because you can't be bothered to walk 50 extra feet. And if you think your donation history or social status puts you above basic rules, you might just end up in handcuffs in a hot pink tracksuit going viral for all the wrong reasons, while the community you tried to control throws a party to celebrate your downfall.